So there is a pretty fascinating story in the news. Actually, yesterday is when it came out, but it's talking about some losses that Trump has been taking lately, and it kind of begs the question as to whether or not his influence in the GOP is waning, because one could argue that he's the de facto leader of the GOP right now. There isn't really a single unified leader of the GOP right now. There's a big rift going on whether or not to continue on the Trump platform and that kind of path, or do you switch to your old GOP ways? Which way exactly do you go? And so there's this interesting article on The Hill. It says Trump takes 2 punches from GOP. It says it's been a tough week for former President Trump. Trump's preferred candidate in a special House election in Texas lost on Tuesday to another Republican who was likely boosted by some protest votes against the former president. And on Wednesday, 17 Senate Republicans voted to advance a bipartisan infrastructure deal that Trump spent weeks railing against. While Trump remains a towering figure in the GOP, the back-to-back blows have led some to question whether his influence may have started to wane since he left office. Quote, Trump has not had a big win in quite a while, Alex Conant, a Republican strategist, said. I think without wins, his political capital is depleted. Donald Trump does not have a post-presidential strategy. He is overexposed at the same time that he's not getting enough attention. He's given lots of speeches and traveling the country, but other than his narrow base, no one's really paying attention, and I think that limits his influence. Trump received a blow to his endorsing power this week when Susan Wright, his candidate of choice in a runoff election for Texas' 6th congressional district, lost to fellow Republican Jake Ellzey. One former Trump advisor dismissed the idea that Wright's loss on Tuesday in the Senate's infrastructure vote had dealt a blow to the former president's influence over the GOP, blaming the upsets on Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and the Conservative Club for Growth, which had encouraged Trump to endorse Wright. It's absurd to think that you can take anything away from the Texas race or the Senate vote. The advisor said there are a million issues at play here, and it's got nothing to do with President Trump. Trump himself disputed Wright's defeat will damage his reputation in primaries, arguing the GOP won the race regardless. One former Trump White House official similarly downplayed the long-term significance of Wright's defeat, but acknowledged Trump must be careful in rushing to endorse candidates. The official said some allies have pushed the former president to endorse early in competitive contests, like the Ohio Senate race, but that doing so could backfire. Some Republicans are already worried that could be the case in Georgia, where Trump has thrown his weight behind former NFL player Herschel Walker. Others have expressed similar concerns in North Carolina, where Trump has endorsed Rep. Ted Budd in a hotly contested GOP Senate primary. Budd is up against 2 high-profile challengers, including former Governor Pat McCrory, who has a better fundraising record than Budd and a track record of winning states. So it appears that this article is basically detailing some fears among some Republican advisors that Trump's influence is essentially waning in the GOP. Now, again, one could look at it as he's kind of the de facto leader of the GOP just because there's no real other leader, and also keep in mind that he has a pretty sharp grip on the House of Representatives, again, because a lot of those House races are either areas where there are tons of Trump supporters, or it's enough Trump supporters to where it could swing an election. So they have to basically be Trump's bitch in order to not lose their election. So we also saw him taking a picture with Ted Cruz, and so there was a lot of, even in the Senate, he had some influence. So it's been a big fight going on, but it does appear that Trump's power may be waning as time goes on. His endorsement power isn't enough for him to win races. I think that the comment about how outside of his narrow base, he's not really reaching people, I think that that's pretty accurate summary of what's going on with Trump. It's just too narrow of a base for him right now, and so he's not really able to have that attention or overall arching power that he wants. Now, is he going to run for president in 2024? I would imagine so. I don't see why he wouldn't run again, especially considering how old he is and how desperate he is for attention and that kind of power. So I definitely see him running in the 2024 presidential election. But, you know, is Trump's influence waning here? Probably. When will it go away fully? I have no idea. The only person I could see Republicans coalescing around is Ron DeSantis. despite how much of a failure he's been as Florida governor. He seems like the exact kind of failure that the GOP wants. So is there going to be a DeSantis versus Trump battle? Maybe, probably, don't know. But interesting nonetheless.